Welcome back to First Up, the first stop in your busy day. Keep those text messages, those tweets, the posts, and your emails coming because we are factoring in your comments in our lines of questioning on the show each and every day. We want to say a good morning and a special welcome to Pastor Clive Dottin. This is the guy who does not put water in his mouth to discuss what's at the root of the crime situation in the country. And this morning is guaranteed to be no different. Glad to have you back on the show,
morning.
Pastor
It's a pleasure
Dottin.
to be here.
Welcome back.
I saw you last in the mall in Ellerslie Plaza.
Yes. Pastor Dottin, you would have heard a little bit of the interview that we had previously where the Ministry of Education is trying to sort of take in front, as it were, with the next generation of youngsters coming through the education system, to inculcate in them some important values, help them develop healthy self-esteem and so on and so forth, so that they don't make those wrong choices at a crucial time in their life and then wind up going down a life of crime. What are your thoughts on such an intervention?
Well, I was asking, I think it's Shona Huggins,
Yes.
what happens after this week? That was my concern. In other words, will we so inspire the teachers and administrators in 1 week, okay, to take the ball and run with it? And of course, what competencies we provide to teachers on a medium and long term, because I listened to the minister carefully, in terms of the medium and long term. I think that is where it has to be. And then what I was thinking is that if let's suggest, okay, I'm hearing the program for the first time, let us suggest that we're doing this in a week, and we hope that it will be a catalyst to something later on. I think what has to happen is that the local folks like Officer Shabadi, Rennie Huggins, and a lot of other people, ourselves, the Love Until Foundation, and all the other kind and all those groups, Soval, for example, people who are in the trenches already, who are relating to some of these same issues. I don't want to identify schools, but right now I could think of our foundation looking at 5 schools where there's been a significant level of bullying. And should I just bring to the fore, when I was on the Police Service Commission, one day I think it was Mr. Craig and Mr. Philbert met with the Police Service Commission, and we discussed the same thing. And I discovered that part of our problem in the society is that we don't network with all the various institutions. So I was able to bring to Mr. Philbert's attention that we had clearly established gangs in some of our schools in the corridor, and that what was happening, and I hope the folks in charge of this program do their homework and research, because what was happening is that we had to lock down a particular principal in a particular school, lock her down, and distribute the gangs. And this came after consensus, distribute the gangs. One gang come to school on Monday, gang B stay, Tuesday, C and D, A and B not there, and then bring back A and B when C and D not there. So that when you're looking at this, it's your bully, you know? And you look at this, you have to look at the entrenched gang crisis, the kind of status. I noticed they talked about low self-esteem, and the minister, which I agree with totally. The challenge, however, is how do you lift their self-esteem when they're operating within a particular context, so the question you ask, the context in the school, the context in the community. For examtle, I'm in Bagatelle right now. I'm sandwiched opposite the junior secondary school and Surprise Recreation Ground. This is my 5th week there. After 5 weeks, we are now beginning to touch base with not only at-risk youth, but endangered youth. When I say endangered, the sword of Damocles is hanging over their heads. Do you know in this country, we must have in this corridor at least 300 teenagers and young adults. Look at the ages of those who have been gunned down, that we have to reach. And we have to reach with a holistic program to deal with, quoting the words of those who were here before in the previous interview, the complex realities of TNT. We have to. I am meeting young people in Digo Martin, for example, who have 3 gangs posting death threats on them. In other words, you have a lot of, the borders between gangs are no longer so clearly defined. You know, you have the phase 4 and phase 5 versus Pasture Street, Upper Wharton Street. And the main road, have mercy, is the border. Then you have situations in Bagatelle and River Estate, where C-Trace may be the border. I'm talking about real borders, the fortress mentality inside there, the fact of revenge. Where I am situated right now with that Gospel Way Festival, you have 3 gangs around there. At the end, the northern end of St. Lucian Road, you have the Waterwheel Gang, you have the Beetham Gang. Now, I say the Beetham Gang because you have the Beetham Gang who has been relocating. What is happening right now? All who want to impact on bullying and gangs in school must know there's a certain fluidity, there's a certain seismic shift between the location of gangs, all right? And I must tell you, we as pastors, some of us as parents and youth leaders have failed, you know, the environment and failed to pick up certain movements, certain shifts. For example, I think the one group in the society who has done a lot of good recruiting work with teenagers happens to be the gang leaders. They have done a phenomenal job, and we do well to learn from them.
That's because everywhere in the world, gangs proliferate where there are breakdowns in the families, and
they become the family.
And they become the family.
They become the family.
I mean, I want to go back to the issue of the intervention the minister spoke about, which is extremely laudable. The initiative is welcomed. The concern is that understanding the complexities of socialization of any child or any group of children in a society, and thinking that reaching out to a heart is going to make a difference. That's the utopian concept. If a child has been socialized a particular way, in a violent environment, in an abusive environment, if a child has seen for 10, 15 years antagonistic interactions, they assimilate those as what is normal. And 2 weeks or 3 weeks of intervention is not going to change behavior on the long term. There has to be some more sustained, more consistent approach to changing that behavior.
And I want to rush you a minute. And you have to use people who are already mobilizing individuals on the ground, all right? To use the quotation with the hole and the person falling down there that she used just now. You have to identify those, the average Joe, she called him. There are a lot of average Joes in the corridor who are just waiting for some information, waiting perhaps for some investment of resources, but they're not waiting to say they will do nothing. We're already in the trenches, we're already involved. And to my mind, the genius of this initiative would depend on one major factor. The folks on the ground who are involved in the trenches, do we include them and do we give them the support, all right, that is required for them to draw a wider circle and pick up with something? Because bless your heart, we have some bullies who will tell you they never met their fathers. We have some bullies whose fathers are in Golden Grove, pressing a button and determining who will be killed, who will be shot and killed. That kind of situation.
When you've been neglected and abused for 15 years, for 10 years, for 12 years, it takes a certain level of consistency and interventive methods to get to that person. And it has happened in so many different communities. There must be a different kind of holistic approach to dealing with it.
You had an official from the Ministry of Education going to a particular opening of a school in the corridor. And that same day, on that very same day, all right, 2 gangs with predominantly women. All right, I repeat that, young girls. There are a lot of young girls moving with gangs in the schools now. That is also a gender shift taking place. And I went to them, all right, because I was told by the principal, who looked very, very soft and fragile. And I went to the gangs there, because I'm an aggressive character myself. And they try and see me as mad as a sentence case too. So I went to them and I told them, what's this all about? And you know what I got from the counselor there? Because you have some schools, one counselor. You've got to find a way to empower these counselors and also increase their competencies, because she was saying a lot of those girls don't know their father. A lot of those girls, their fathers beat their mothers. So you have the abuse within the system, the domestic violence there. You have the issue of the fathers who are mining so many families. A lot of gang leaders in this country are mining 3 and 4 households, you know. They're with these women on a rotation basis. So the father, the gang leader who's a father and a grandfather, because you have triple generations in this gang business tone. And we've got to understand that no initiative will work unless you understand the significant sociological factors on the ground there. For example, let's go to St. Barb's. Let's go to a place that was a bloody center, Sugrim Trace, for example. You have a situation where a mother tells a child in that school, all right? And I went up there with Officer Shabadi, tells a child in that school, you will never go to secondary school. I don't care how well you do in the C exam, you will never go. So what is he doing right now? He's a drug dealer in that community of Labonte. That is exactly what he is. So that you have to have a program that reaches out to the guys, not just in the schools, and the gangs in the schools, but the guys who have dropped out. I'm talking to a 16-year-old in Diego Martin this week at the Gospel Way Festival. And I met with him in the day, not in the night, because some of them cannot even be seen in the night in the program, in a religious program. You have a guy who ran through the tent with a gun in his hand, and he was going to kill somebody in Bagatelle, which he subsequently killed. All right, while I'm preaching the Blue Basin, another murder takes place. Now, what I'm saying is, we have a team of about 40 individuals going from door to door, house to house. We're staging the walk. We're promoting the center. We're giving alternatives and options to the young people. And to my mind, those of us who are already in the trenches and on the field, who come face to face with the issue, you know, there must be, I'm not talking about recognition now, But the issue of we must create a platform with all the groups doing all these things, all right, from Serval to Love Until Foundation, Love Until Foundation to Kind, from Kind to this initiative, or whatever have you. The country is crying out for someone who will become a catalyst, all right, to pull all these initiatives together and target specific cases, all right? That is where we have to go, understanding that when a mother can tell a child, you will not go to secondary school, you will not go, you have to reach that mother too. You can't just deal with the child.
Environment.
Pastor Dottin, let's extrapolate some of what you're seeing there, and look at what we've been seeing in the newspapers. Some statistics coming out recently that the majority of the people who have been killed this year thus far fall between the age group 15, I think, to 35 or something like that.
Yes, sure.
Young people being killed, not always gang related, but definitely that is something to cause a great deal of concern. And then you have the added complication of gang activity. It may be a case of mistaken identity in one or two cases, or it may be that this person was involved in something that they really should not have been involved in and they paid the price for it. Let's tussle with some of those issues.
All right, now hear this, and there's something I'm not hearing the criminologists saying or the media people saying. By the way, we cannot fight crime with taking money from criminals. Let's be quite honest here. Let's be brutally honest here. You have the raw assassins on the ground, and you have the polished assassins, the businessmen who import in the cocaine. They are the polished, sophisticated assassins. Let's get that right. But there's one point not being mentioned with this gang thing that I think needs to be said. Some of the killing is not gang related because the guy doing the killing is trying to get into the gang, all right? And he's proving to the gang leader that I'm ready.
So that's initiation taking place.
That's right there, and it's a big thing. And the schools are being targeted, and I don't think our security institutions are giving enough support to the school. For example, if I know that is where the bunch of the future criminals for 2014 to 2019 coming from in the school population in certain at-risk communities there, then I'm going to put some resources there. And that doesn't only have to be a policing initiative, it must be a policy initiative of the state, because we know that's where the tarantulas are being hatched and spawned. We are aware of that. And therefore we have gone, by the way, young people see right through us. They know if we're in a money scene. They know if we are there for them. I'm talking to a 16-year-old boy and I say, you know, you almost broke down in my hands, giving his mother and his stepfather pressure. And he's looking all around him, I mean, I can't tell you which spot in Diego Martin, but I'm dealing with him on a one-to-one basis, looking all around him. You know why he's looking all around him? He says, Pastor, I have 3 gangs, 1 in Bonds Road, all right, Upper Bonds Road, and 2 in Diego Martin that are looking for me. I could be killed at any time. Let me give her the next mother. She's talking to me. No father. And by the way, you check the list of that 180. A lot of those young men, and by the way, you see the young girls getting killed because in Mango Alley there. And they're not alleged as a fact. That child literally died with a 19-year-old boyfriend and took all the bullets for him. So that once you have a male crisis, you're going to have a female crisis. And we have almost as much of the female crisis now as a male crisis. And some of the experts are missing that point. And therefore, we in the church, we in government, we in the opposition, we in the business world. And I want to cry out to the business world to come clean. You know, it is shocking to hear people talking about crime and drugs and things. You know, when you have significant elements in our business community, bringing in the stuff.
We're going to put up in there. We're talking to Pastor Clive Dottin about the escalating seeming gang violence in Trinidad Tobago. We'll take a short break and come back with more.
And it's time for your quote of the day on today's edition of First Up, and it comes from Henry Ford. Failure is simply the opportunity to begin again, this time more intelligently. And Henry Ford, the rugged industrialist who created the Ford motor car empire. So there you go. Failure, simply the opportunity to begin again, this time more intelligently. Paul.
I think it's a good segue because apparently someone was offended by a comment I made about the child with the fell in the ground that the Miss, what's her name?
Jody Blanco.
Jody Blanco said earlier on when I asked her about the situation regarding whether or not if you save one child, if it's not great. Saving one child is great in principle, but when the question was asked about how consistent is that going to be and how transferable is it across all the problems we have in Trinidad and Tobago, and while the initiative is laudable, as media people, we have to question how transferable it is, how effective it's going to be, given the level of problems we're seeing in Trinidad and Tobago. And the statement about utopia means a perfect world, and we have to have different approaches in different situations. So I
Could I make
apologize if
a
you're
small
offended.
comment?
Absolutely.
Yes, Pastor Dottin.
I agree with you, it's a laudable program, and I told them that out, and I told the minister that too. But I was telling Ms. Huggins, what will be the genius of this program is if after the week we have individuals, all right, who could replicate and who could use their local resources and their cultural nuances to really expand beyond the one child. So we have several people being impacted upon.
Well, I think they're going to
individuals on the
train. They're going to
ground
train
here.
teachers.
Yeah, sure.
The intention is to train teachers.
Yes.
But certainly, my question came from the complexity of situations that you alluded to,
Yeah.
where many times we don't understand how pervasive gangs are in families, in communities.
I just want to add to the point that you just made there, Paul. With a text message that we got in, someone is saying here, while teachers have to play their part, parents determine their child's character at a very early stage, and the time has come for parents to be held accountable and also to be given training. Some thoughts from you, Pastor
Of
Dottin,
course,
on that.
and the issue of parental retraining now, we're dealing with retraining. And we have to applaud single mothers in at-risk communities who are both mother and father and who are being threatened. I know of mothers right now in the corridor and beyond the corridor who are being threatened by their drug-dealing sons and drug-pushing sons. All right? In fact, there are stepfathers on the scene there, and they are put, I'm telling you, so I met a stepfather recently in Diego Martin. He loves that child. It's not his child, but he loves that child. He's there for the child. But since the child has been disappointed by his real father, he's trying to figure out, how can I trust a man who is not my real father when I can't trust my real father? You understand that kind of scenario there? And by the way, these things take time. I have to also applaud counselors in schools who have a number. Imagine you're a counselor in one school and you have 4 gangs to deal with. I mean, you could almost go ballistic. You could go to St. Anne's quickly. You need a counselor yourself. And governments and all NGOs must recognize this is where we are. I also want to give a warning that we don't deal with this sophisticated situation, this very tragic situation, just in a short term. You have to have a certain level of consistency working with youth who have been hurt people. But I also want to say that the future belongs to those who see possibilities long before they are obvious to a lot of people. And therefore, every initiative we affirm, and at the same time understand that we have to draw a wider circle to reach as many people as we can reach. And by the way, you're not reaching one age range alone. You have to reach the parents. And abuse is a intergenerational thing.
Pastor Dottin, do you get a sense that we're understanding in Trinidad and Tobago just what gangs mean to some societies, some communities? And I'm talking about this from the perspective as the general public looks on and we see murders and gang-related murders in a particular way. But inside a community, because of what a gang leader means to that community, and I'm not justifying a gang leader supporting a community by any means by ill-gotten gains, but do we understand intricacies of how a gang and a community operates sometimes, and the interaction and the dynamics that are happening there? Because if I don't think we're understanding it to the point of the community doesn't look at the gang or the gang leader in a negative way.
Before I come to Trinidad, let me go to Jamaica. 77 people or 73 people were willing to lose their lives for Chris Dottin's coke in Tivoli Gardens. And Jamaicans tell me.
That you know about.
That you know about. I was in Miami, they're meeting with a host of Jamaican folks who were well aware of the Tivoli situation, and they told me straight, the state-of-the-art clinic in Jamaica is one that Chris Dottin's coke funded. So he's the guy that takes care of so many people. And in the absence of the collapse of institutions that are failing, these gang leaders are really the true members of parliament. And we have to see it. The guys are the true fathers. As Bill Rivers, the Pentecostal pastor, was told by the gang dealer in Chicago, they say, he told Bill Rivers asked him, tell me how I could do the same thing you are doing. And he says, you know something, when they cannot see you, they could see me. And I was willing to spend time with them. I'm in a business, and I know what to do to get that business sustainable, and I'm running with it. So we've got to understand that. Okay?
And how do we get that information translated from the understanding of gangs and why they've proliferated in any community in Trinidad and Tobago? Because at the end of the day, if we don't get an understanding of that, we really, and you spoke about the shifting gang dynamics in that from last year SOE to now, many of the gangs have changed. They've changed composition, they've changed leaders.
And locations.
They've changed operational strategies.
I think the SIA, the intelligence agencies, will have to help all of us understand what's taking place there. And they have to be on the ground consistently too. I think I want to beg the state to increase the research capacity of our intelligence agencies. And our 3 universities must play a significant role here. Gone are the days for armchair academics, you know, saying they know how to solve the problem via criminological strategy. Gone are those days. We have got to identify and train people and even train students to be on the ground. I look at some research papers done by some students out of our universities and I'm shocked. Some of them use information that is not verifiable at all. It lacks authenticity. They heard a rumor. And I think professors have to be more careful with this issue because all of us have to be on board and take a very genuine approach to dealing with young people. And love will always find a way. I agree with her in that case, Ms. Blanco. Love will always find a way. And we've got to have enough people to love these young people because they have a love bankruptcy. They have been raped psychologically.
But they're getting love from the gang leaders.
All right.
There are different kinds
love
of
at
love.
that
Yeah. But I don't.
They're getting their needs filled from negative elements.
I don't
of
call that
society.
love. They might have a certain level of satisfaction
But
coming from
then
them. But they're tools. But they
think it's
perceive it
love.
that way,
They think
right?
it's love.
So you have to help those guys see that they're really tools and nothing else in the hand of a guy. As I was telling the 16-year-old, I say, when your funeral comes, a lot of candles will be lit all over the road, but somebody will replace you. In fact, somebody will have already replaced you before your funeral.
But do you think, because I was talking to a young man, and they value that. They value the fact that if at 28 you're gunned down, I will have the street lit with candles.
Right.
The life sometimes has lost value, and the other elements that they hold on to are the ones that they
But you know where you have to go?
Value too.
I tell those teens in Digo Martin and the young adults, I say, I know, apart from all the bravado, you want to live and you want to be a success. And this is where leaders in the society will have to go when we address the parliament. It was shocking that we had a whole debate, a no confidence motion, and not much was said on how we reach young people. What are the strategies emerging from both the government and the opposition to reach our young people in a creative way? And I'm saying the media has a significant role to play. I think, finally, what I want to say this morning is we've got to have the courage to really move the society to the next level. We have got to have the courage to say, you know something, we will have campaign finance reform in any attempt to change the Constitution. We have got to be genuine. We've got to be altruistic. We have got to say, you know something, we can't help young people make a brand new start, but we can enable them to have a brand new ending. This is where we have to go.
Pastor Dottin, we've spoken about the young people, we've spoken about the teachers and the parents. Where are the police in all of this?
Well, I'm glad you brought up that because it always creates quite in my life, because I know in the past there were some guys that service who wished me dead. But I have to say this, it is appalling. It is shocking to hear our welfare association guys keep attacking, do a very unethical thing and attacking the commissioner of police consistently, as if that man produced the breakdown in our society, that political after political party, you know what I mean, virtually let go out of control. You know, this is something you have to go serious. And I'm saying right now, it is a pity that we're in this kind of crisis. The murder rate has gone ahead of last year, all right, right now as we speak. And it's a pity that we have officers in this force who are in league with the gang leaders. And let me tell you something, one day this country has got to come face to face with the issue, that to fix problems like that, all right, and fix problems like at the cost of the issue of licensing and the corruption in some of our state agencies. We have got to prepare to say, you know something, we're going to take the bull by the horns. We've got to have courage, and of course, my profession, the issue of faith in God to make a difference. But we cannot have, there's one mall in this country where students from 3 prestige schools go and get a supply of ganja and cocaine. One mall in this country, all right? Where they go there and the deal is right there. And if I can know that, the police must be able to know that. The first division officers must be able to know that, all right? If I am aware of that, because I am dealing with a young man who was a victim at the age 18, had a gun in his hand, and he was the bodyguard for the drug dealer in that particular community. And I am saying right now that we have got to get serious, don't play politics, depoliticize the whole issue of the fight against crime.
How do we get serious? If you started a comment before the last commercial break, if we're looking at the lower hanging fruit in the crime chain in Trinidad Tobago, with the gang leaders and the boys selling on the block cocaine and marijuana on the block, where we seem not to want to deal with the higher ends. I looked at an interview with Rwandan President Paul Kagame recently, and they've made significant gains in the fight against crime in Rwanda simply by bringing down corrupt ministers, bringing down businessmen who are involved in the illegal drug trade, who are the big financiers. And very often we know that if we do not deal with that end of it and keep dragging the boys off the street, we're spinning top in mud, because the boys in the street are replaceable, as we've seen from the last SOE to now.
Well, let me answer that very quickly and very frankly, as you would expect of me. Our cocaine trade in this country is built on a merger between the Colombian mafia and the Sicilian mafia, all right? And a touch of the Russian mafia. Our final structure is based on that. It's a merged structure, all right? Almost a narcotic Douglarized system. Therefore, the young boys at the bottom, and I tell the young guys in Digger Martin that all the time, and in Laventille and all over, you know, you're expendable, you're quite right. You will get most of the bullets and least of the profits. We have young men in this country slaughtered by Colombian drug dealers. There's a young lady right now in Southwest Trinidad. She knows exactly which Colombian dealer operates in which community. And she cannot get out of a situation with a gang leader. So I am saying to you, once every man and nation comes the moment to decide, and this is the moment, to cripple that mafiatic structure that is based on a merger between the Colombian mafia and the Sicilian Italian mafia. This is the moment.
But
by the way,
but the young boys don't deal with them.
The
What about dealing with the business entities that we all have heard about
well,
for so many years?
Well, facilitating the
let me answer that question by dealing with Miss Susan Francois. We had a lot of brouhaha about whether we should put her there or put somebody else, and the politics involved. She is there now. We have an FIU. Money laundering is supposed to be the thing. By the way, Al Capone was brought on not because of his criminal activity, because the IRS. Inland Revenue, and he's a church deacon. And I want the churches to hear that well, because some of us are a bunch of cowards in the church. It's a church deacon who was part of that process and who recommended that. And I am saying right now, the time has come for all of us to play that role in society, but I'm saying unless we deal with the top and the godfathers of the drug trade, who feel it's so big that they could keep making amends on crime when their own colleagues involved and they're bringing in the cocaine, all right, we have to appeal to their conscience, because everybody has a conscience. Everybody has a conscience.
Pastor Dottin, what you're calling for, this courageous step that you want us to take, is going to mean even more bloodshed, and not many people have the stomach for that.
Well, I'm saying...
you're calling for people to become martyrs, literally.
I listen to the... Yeah, of course, I listen to the people talking, all right, in the second division, for example, and the association and everything else. But where we have reached right now, and Keith Sobero writing the Express is completely correct, where we have reached right now, no superficial touching of, you know, the trade and the structure will really produce any results. And right now, I'm telling you, we have at least 200 to 300 young people between 16 and 25 who have a death sentence posted over their heads. And the only way to deal with that, you've got to stop that flow of drugs coming in. We don't produce cocaine in this country. And it's stupid to assume, all right, that all is coming here transshipped and all leaving, all not leaving. And it would shock us to know, not just the schools in Laventille, but prestige schools have a lot of our youth who feel they're protected by the wealth of their parents, by the connection with their parents, and they're using this stuff also. So every class is being affected. And I'm saying to us right now, with faith in God and a commitment to excellence, let us bite the bullet. And I mean, that is more literal than symbolic. Let us bite the bullet.
Pastor Dottin, thanks for being
God
with us.
bless you.
We appreciate
God
you.
bless you.
We were talking to Pastor Clive Dottin about the emerging criminal activity in Trinidad Tobago. We'll take a short break and first up and come back with more. Stay with us.